Elite Conference, the online summit for e-commerce sellers. I'm Anne from Elite Conference, and I will be the moderator for this session. And Elite Conference brings to you our exclusive speakers sharing their road of success through presentations, case studies, interactive question and answer sessions, which we will have. Running an e-commerce business can be exciting. However, you will face different kinds of risks, and an e-commerce entrepreneur has to battle all of them. Right from hackers stealing your card credentials to damaging your e-store inventory. At times, even your customer is at risk, and the key here is how can you protect yourself, your business from hassles like these, and every case is unique in its own way. All these e-commerce businesses need to be protected from unforeseen circumstances, such as so many that will be discussed today. Well, let me introduce to you the topic for this session: mitigate risk, insurance against litigation. For this session, we have with us the very gorgeous Ashlin Hadden, super smart, and the founder of Ashlin Hadden Insurance Agency. She comes with more than 16 years of expertise in insurance and banking services. Ashlin believes in going beyond the traditional approach to expose risks, bridge insurance gaps, and offer solutions to protect against unforeseen circumstances. Not to forget, Ashlin was also the pioneer to launching the new suspension insurance policy 2017, which is helping e-commerce sellers operate with optimum protection. And this policy helps the sellers support their income, supplement their income while they're suspended from Amazon. So now to begin this session, let us hear from Ashlin herself. Hi, Ashlin.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
How are you doing?
On this. Good. It's a sunny day here in Indiana, so it's great.
Well, I am sure that our viewers are looking forward to getting great advice from Ashlin Hadden.
I promise I'll try to keep it as light and fun and exciting as insurance can be. I promise it won't be boring.
I think that's what everyone wants.
There you go.
We will be having a question and answer round at the end of this session. So okay. Audience, please make sure to send us your questions, and then we're going to pick. And over to you, Ashlin.
Sounds great. All right, I'm going to go and share my screen here. So if I do something wrong, let me know, okay?
Please.
All right, here we go. Let's try this. Okay, I think we're going. All right, can you see that?
I can see that. Okay. Can you switch to the presentation? Yeah, that's right.
Okay, there we go. All right, so as she said, my name is Ashlin Hadden. I'm the owner of Ashlin Hadden Insurance. Let me give you a little bit of background on myself. I started in the banking industry. I was a branch manager at a bank for about 10 years. I was moving from one location back to Indianapolis, and one of my friends had said, hey, why don't you go apply for this job at Liberty Mutual? And they're an insurance company. I was like, I don't want to sell insurance. I don't want to be a used car salesman. But I took the interview anyways. And the gentleman that I interviewed with said that this was a man's industry, and that the men out there would outsell me every day. So I was like, I'll take the job and I'll prove you wrong. So I was the top rep in the state, third in the entire company, accepted my Rookie of the Year reward on stage, and sent him a picture and said, who can't sell insurance now? So I really kind of got into the insurance business with a chip on my shoulder, trying to prove that a female can be a successful business owner too. So I ended up going into left Liberty Mutual, wanted to open up my own agency. So now I have my own agency. We have 40 some carriers, and started in the e-commerce world kind of by accident. One of my clients came to me and said, hey, Amazon's changing these rules and we have to have this liability policy. Can you help me? And I was like, Chris, nobody likes e-commerce sellers. You are the redheaded stepchildren. I can't help you. I don't know anything about it. And he made one comment to me and he's like, well, learn about it. And I was like, you're right. Just because I don't know anything about it now doesn't mean that I can't learn how to do it in the future. So I started asking around, ended up getting a carrier that would allow us to write the policy. Got the policy for him. And then he came back and he's like, hey, by the way, I have this Facebook group and there's 15,000 of us in here. Can I post your information? And I was like, there's that many people that don't know how to be protected or can't be protected. And it was really like a light switch went off for me. And it's like, you know what? You are the redheaded stepchildren. No one is taking the time to work with e-commerce sellers because they don't know anything about it. So I kind of just immersed myself in your absolutely crazy world that you guys live in. This whole e-commerce industry is crazy. But once I started going to conferences and speaking and learning what your community is about, I honestly just fell in love. I fell in love with the fact that you guys care so much about each other and you care to help protect each other. And all of these groups and these conferences and your podcasts and things like this that help other people be successful is just unseen. And I just completely fell in love. So now I'm like the e-commerce insurance queen. This is all I do. I eat and sleep and breathe all of you guys and what you're doing. And so it's been absolutely amazing ride. I'm really excited about it. So we specialize in protecting your assets for e-commerce. If you're doing RA, OA, wholesale, private label, white label, all of those types of things. If you're selling on Amazon, eBay, Wayfair, Jet, Etsy, all of those things that you guys are doing, we're here to help kind of protect your assets. So my philosophy is simple. You worked hard to build your business. I'm going to work even harder to protect it. So today, these sessions, we're going to go through like what Amazon requires. We're going to go through some claims. I'm going to show you some pictures of some crazy claims. And then at the end, we're going to open it up for questions. So if you've got questions, feel free to let us know as we're kind of going through this. So I'm going to focus a little bit on Amazon first. If you could just read the rules and your terms of service, that would be great. A lot of my clients didn't realize that when they signed up to be a pro seller on Amazon, that in that 900 pages of terms of service that you probably just skimmed through and said, okay, I agree, you actually agree that you would have a general liability policy. So many of my clients don't know that they are actually breaking terms of service now if you don't have a policy. So in the past, Amazon said that you needed 3 months of consecutive sales of $10,000 or more. And then I don't know how many of you remember, this was just a couple years ago, then this happened. There was a hoverboard that caught on fire in someone's garage and ended up causing all of this damage. As you can see, here's the hoverboard, and this is the house that caught on fire. And there was 2 children upstairs, and they had to, jump off the roof and all of these things. Well, this family sued Amazon for $30 million. So Amazon came back and said, well, I'm not the owner of this hoverboard. I'm not the manufacturer of this hoverboard. And here I am getting sued for $30 million. And all I did was put this on my platform. So here's the lawsuit. Look at all of these people this homeowner sued. So Amazon and all its crazy other names. And down here's the third-party seller. So this third-party seller who just bought this product at wholesale is listed in this lawsuit. Now this third-party seller has to defend themselves. And if they don't have an insurance policy, they're paying legal fees out of pocket. So what about now? What does Amazon say now? Go ahead, read this. Just kidding. Blah, 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 buy an insurance policy. Okay? All of this legal jargon that Amazon says that you have to have, breaks down to buy a liability policy, okay? They want you to have a general liability policy with products completed. So what does that mean in layman's terms? Okay, a general liability policy is going to protect you from what you do or say as a business. Your product liability is going to protect you for what your products do to harm someone or someone's personal property. General liability, you go out there and put something on Facebook that says, or I'm sorry, Amazon or eBay or Wayfair that says, my lipstick is going to make you lose 30,000 pounds. Well, not 30,000 pounds, 30 pounds. It's going to make you lose 30 pounds. And if this lipstick doesn't make me lose 30 pounds tomorrow, then I'm going to sue you, and that's going to go under general liability. If I go out there and I list this lipstick and I put this lipstick on and I have a reaction and my lips blow up like big old peaches, that's your product liability. That's where this product has harmed me or my personal property. So two different coverages there. And that's what Amazon wants you to have. They want you to cover what you do or say or what your products do to harm someone else. Product liability, like I said, is going to help with those products. If you are buying something RA, OA, or wholesale, you probably are never going to be held liable for the $1 million, okay? If somebody gets hurt on your products. But what you are going to need this policy for is the to defend yourself in that lawsuit. So I have this L'Oreal, I put it on my lips blow up. I'm going to sue L'Oreal. I'm going to sue the third-party seller, and I'm going to sue Amazon. But your policy, since this isn't my actual white label or private label product, your policy is going to say, okay, I'm going to hire the attorney, and I'm going to defend you, and I'm going to get your name dropped from this lawsuit. So that's kind of the difference of the general liability and the product liability and what Amazon wants you to have. Now, a lot of you are saying, well, I've had a policy, or I've had been selling on Amazon for years and they've never said anything to me. We get that all the time. With the ruling that came down in California a couple of months ago, it has been rumored that Amazon now is going to start policing this. Okay, they said, here's the deal. We're going to push this back on you, and you're going to have to prove to me that you have this insurance policy, and you're going to have to prove to me that you renew it every single year that you are selling on my platform, or we're going to suspend you. We know how Amazon is. We know that Amazon just flies by the seat of their pants and poof, one day they change their rules and they really don't give you any warning. So if they start policing this and they start saying, I need this certificate of insurance and you don't have it uploaded, you could get suspended. So our suggestion is, even though they're not policing it today, get your policy today. Let us send over the certificate of insurance. So once they do decide tomorrow that they're going to police it, that you're not going to get suspended. Okay, so it's coming. We just don't know when they're going to start policing it. So just protect your assets, get it done, get your insurance over to them. So when they do decide to police it, you're covered. So a lot of our clients come to us and say, I don't sell anything risky, or I have an LLC, so I don't need insurance. I'll just file bankruptcy and be done with it. Or I don't sell anything that could hurt anyone. How many of you, this is Amazon's problem? This is, I'm just a third-party seller. All right. I know a lot of you are raising your hands because a lot of you say this stuff. So what's the worst that could really happen? Okay. Let's look through some of these pictures, and these are actual claims that we've seen within the last 12 months. A lot of people look at their products and say, I don't think I have anything that could hurt someone. How many of you would have thought that just a normal cup like this could be something that causes a lawsuit? Okay, if you can see right here, this cup has a little bit of a plastic piece that's chipped out. The child was using this cup, ended up biting down on the cup, and a piece of that plastic broke off and cut this little girl's esophagus. And then they had to go do surgery to get this little plastic piece out of this little girl's belly. So again, if this was your private label product, you would be 100% responsible for whatever happened to that little girl. If you're RA, OA, and wholesaler, you might not be 100% responsible for what happened to her, but you're going to be listed in that lawsuit. And bet your butt that attorney is going to be expensive. So keep that in mind. We hear a lot of times, well, I just sell this or I just sell that. It can't hurt anyone. It can. It still can hurt people. So, you know, this here is a pair of shoes, Barbie shoes. One of the little kids swallowed the shoe and got stuck in her throat and had to go have surgery to get this removed. Here's two other things. Electronics are huge. Anything with batteries are huge. If you're selling any type of electronics, get a policy and get it quick. So this one here, the battery exploded and ended up catching the iPhone on fire and then catching the nightstand on fire. And then the nightstand caught the curtains on fire and caused a lot of damage in someone's house all over a faulty cord. So it wasn't the iPhone itself that they were selling. It was the charging cord that they were selling. Same type of thing with this one. So remember what your products are being used for, not just what they are. A quick story real quick. We had a client that came to me and was getting a quote, and she sold those like baby Bjorns. They like are fabric that like wraps around your body and you like stuff your kid in it. And she's like, Ashlin, this is just a yard of fabric. And I was like, you're right. It is just a yard of fabric, but that yard of fabric is responsible for keeping a child, an 8, 10, 12-pound child, 4.5 feet off the ground. What if that child were to fall? Like, they're gonna sue you. So yes, it's just a yard of fabric, but that fabric is being used to hold a child off the ground. So keep that in mind too. What is your products actually being used for? Couple other things. What else can we do to protect our business? So we talked about general liability and product liability. Those are required from by Amazon, but there's so much other things as an e-commerce seller that you can do to protect your assets. A lot of you have stock. You have stock in your houses, in your garages, in your storage units, at prep centers, all of those types of things. And I need you to think about what would happen if those just appeared. If you didn't have those items anymore, you don't have something to sell. So stocks and stored products is a coverage that you can add to your policy that would cover those items if they were lost or stolen or if there was a fire. How many of you think I've got $50,000 in toothbrushes in my basement and I have a fire? How many of you think that your homeowner's insurance would cover that? Okay, we get that all the time. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your stock or your business personal property unless you can figure out a way to say that you have 50,000 toothbrushes because you like a new toothbrush every time you brush your teeth. They're going to know it's for a business and they're not going to cover it. So having that stock coverage to your policy helps protect you. We would cut you a check for the amount of those products if you were to have a fire or a theft. If you have a 3PL, if you're using a pick, packer, shipper, one of those, and they don't have insurance for your product and they go out of business and you have $100,000 of products sitting there, if you don't have this coverage on your policy, you could be out $100,000 in product because your shipper, prepper, packer, whatever, went out of business and they didn't send your items in. So keep that in mind. This could be one of your biggest assets is your actual stock. So we want to make sure that that's protected. Another thing that we can do is we can protect that stock and products while in transit. So if you're out sourcing and you hit Target and now you're like, okay, I'm going to go hit Kohl's and TJ Maxx. In the meantime, from the time you picked up your first amount or your first product, you could have products sitting in your car where you're in picking more product out from another store. If someone were to break into your car and steal those products, if you don't have coverage, then you could be out again, all of that property that you had sitting in your car while you're picking more items. So business, personal property, and transit is another huge coverage that we do a lot of for people who are actually out doing RA and have products in their car. Okay. Workers' comp. How many of you have employees? How many of your employees are in your houses or in your storage units or in your basements or in your offices? Okay. Workers' comp insurance helps protect those employees. So if they were to get hurt on the job, this policy helps compensate them so you're not sued from your employees. This is a good one too. Data breach. Cyber. We talk about it all the time, how everything is going to the computer. And if you were to have a data breach, you could be sued. The big thing with this is if you have your own website. Okay, if you have your own website, you're collecting information from customers, you have addresses or credit card information, this is a type of coverage that you would need for that. If you're just doing Amazon and Wayfair and things like that, all that information is stored with those companies. So this isn't, mandatory. But if you have your own website or you're selling on your own website, data breach is the coverage that we need to talk about.
Personal,
almost done. Oh, go ahead.
This one was just for like people who are selling on their personal websites, right?
Yes. Yep. If you've got a personal website, this is really where you need to pick this up. If you're just selling on Amazon, Amazon stores that information for you instead of on your own servers. So you wouldn't really need this unless you have that information that you're storing yourself.
Okay. Yep.
Key-man policies are great if you have a business partner. So what this policy is like a life insurance policy. If I'm in partnership with another person and this person dies, I'm going to struggle to financially try to find someone to replace them. I might have to take time off. We might have to do things, new buy-sell agreements, things like that. So a key-man policy is kind of like a life insurance policy that helps protect you if one of your key employees were to pass away. It helps kind of keep that business running and give that financial stability so you can continue to run your business. So if you've got a partner, you have even your wife, if your wife or husband works with you, this is a policy that would really help too. So renter's insurance, if you're renting some location, if you're renting a prep center, you're renting a storage unit, things like that, renters in coverage can help protect you there. So I'll give you a quick example. I was at a conference a couple years ago, and one of the conference owners came to me and said, "Hey, Ashlin, I really think I need to get some insurance. I've got this prep center that I have, that I'm using. It's really a storage unit, and I'm making it into a prep center." So we quoted him, and he's like, "Okay, thank you so much. Let me think about it," and didn't purchase the policy. Well, about 6 months later, he came to me and he's like, "So Ashlyn, can I get that policy now?" And I was like, "Why? What's going on?" He's like, "Well, we were putting up racking systems and there was a water pipe that was running around the bottom of the racking and it got in our way. So we rerouted the water so I could get my racking system up there. Well, when they were rerouting it, they didn't seal the tube enough and it started leaking, and he had about 7 inches of water in his space now, and he had over $100,000 in product that had 6 inches of water in it. So he's like, "I'm going to go ahead and get that policy now." And I'm like, "I can't give you a policy to cover something that's already happened. Like, I can't replace your items before you bought a policy." So this is just a great example of get a policy before you need it. I can't insure a burning building. I can't insure something that's already happened. So get a policy so when something does happen, you have coverage there. So that was a fun situation. Cargo insurance. This is a big one too with my wholesalers that are shipping items overseas. So if you're shipping products from overseas or you're transporting items from one side of the country to the other side of the country, you can get cargo insurance. Now, sometimes you can get cargo insurance from the actual people that are shipping your items, but you pay per shipment. The policies that we sell are like a year policy. So if you're shipping over 2 to 3 times a year products either overseas or across the country, you can pick up a cargo insurance policy that is for the entire year, and you don't have to do that every time you ship. So something to think about too is how many times a year you're actually shipping products. Almost done here. Commercial auto. So if you're using your personal vehicle for business use and you were to cause an accident and be held liable, your personal auto insurance could say, no, we're not paying that because you're using your personal vehicle for business. Commercial auto picks that up for you. So if you're using that vehicle to go ship, to go outsourcing, all of those types of things, you're going transporting goods back and forth, your commercial auto policy is what would pick up if you were to cause an accident on business time. So if you're using your personal vehicle for business use, shame on you, you need a commercial auto policy. All right, so before we go to questions, just how to reach me, how to get some information. If you need a quote, www.ecom.insure is our website. There's a section that says get a quote, and then the applications are there. It's no obligation. If you just want to say, how do I do this? Head over to the website. You can always find me on Facebook too, Ashlin D. Hadden. If you're outsourcing and you're like, hey, Ashlin, is it okay if I sell something like this? Hit me up on Facebook, send me a picture. I'm very, very available to my clients. So, or even if you're not a client yet and you, that's how to reach me. So before we get to the first set of questions, I know the first question is going to be, how much does it cost, right? That's what everybody wants to know. How much is this gonna hurt? So I'll give you a little bit of a price range. Don't hold me to it, to the T, because it does change. It absolutely changes on what you're selling, where you're sourcing from, what state you live in, how much you're selling, so all of those things. But if you're doing under $250,000 in sales and you don't have a private label or white label, it's like $600 to $800 a year. And that's the general liability and product liability. So you can tell it's very inexpensive to get just the basic policy that's going to defend you in a lawsuit. Now, the more things you add, the cost goes up. So if you want us to cover that stock in the warehouse or your stock in your basement, that's a little bit more expensive. If you want us to cover your workers, that's more expensive. But just to start out, to get a basic policy, it still is like $600 to $800 a year. And that could be on the high end. Again, it just depends on what you're selling and what state you live in. So it's not that expensive. Get it done. I promise we make it quick and easy and simple. So any questions, feel free to reach out to me. So I'll turn it back over to you for any additional questions that have popped up.
Well, it's nice to see all that I just saw. I'm really baffled, especially about the automobile thing, you know, like the personal vehicle carrying your professional stuff and all that. But, well, thank you, Ashlin, for all this information and this amazing session that we have just had. So the importance of insurance for e-commerce sellers really needs to be emphasized upon. And now we have, fortunately, come across some really interesting questions which have popped up while you were presenting.
Great.
So, right, let me just begin with the first interesting set of questions, and there would be, okay, so Ashlin, you have been dealing with insurance cases on a daily basis, and you mentioned how everyone is unique. Yeah. So which one do you think was the most tricky? Yeah, which one was the most tricky?
That's a good question. So we actually had a claim from a third-party seller. They sold a watermelon cutter, and the customer who bought the watermelon cutter from them, it was RA. They were cutting the watermelon, and the handle broke off and cut the tip of her finger off. So the biggest part of it was, how do we say our customer just bought this from someone else. They were an RA seller. They're not responsible for this claim. Let's get them dropped from this lawsuit. So that was the big thing. And it took us almost a couple of years to get through the lawsuit to get their name dropped. And it cost our carrier over $36,000 in legal fees to get their names dropped from this lawsuit. So right there, it just shows you this lady had a $700 insurance policy and the carrier spent $36,000 defending her, saying, this is not her responsibility. She is not in charge of this woman's finger. She just resold this item. So that was kind of like the trickiest that we've gone through, is trying to prove that she wasn't the true manufacturer, where she got it from, what was the quality standards from that manufacturer, and proving that it's really their responsibility, that they weren't up to quality. And that there was a crack in this handle, and that's what caused the accident instead of my client.
Okay.
Crazy, isn't it?
Must have hurt both ways, financially as well as to the victim who got it.
Absolutely.
Okay, another one is, do I need insurance on my stock if I'm operating by drop shipping?
Good question. So if you're drop shipping, I wouldn't say that you need stock coverage, because it's going directly from the target or whatever and going directly to the client. So you wouldn't need business personal property, but you still would need that general liability with product liability, because that product still could harm someone and you still could be brought into that lawsuit. So not stock coverage unless you're physically taking possession of it, but you do need that product liability.
I see, okay. We have more. So, will the online business be held liable for selling a product that has caused injury to a customer, despite the product, despite the product being manufactured by a different company?
Yep. So that's kind of what we've been talking about this whole time, is even if it's not your product, you could be held liable for it. Now, would you be held liable for it? Probably not. But are you going to be pulled into that lawsuit? Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not even a most likely, it's an absolutely.
Right. We're in such a litigious world. People sue everyone for everything, no matter what. And they're going to sue everyone involved. We actually had another case that I'll tell you about real quick, where, or maybe I already told you this one, where the gentleman tripped over a box. So someone shipped an item to this guy's house, third-party seller. He tripped over the box and he broke his hip and broke his clavicle, and sued Amazon, sued the manufacturer, sued my third-party seller, and sued UPS. So because he tripped over a box and broke his bones, he sued everyone who ever touched that box, looked at that box, sold him that box. It was absolutely ridiculous. So yes, they're going to sue everyone in the chain of command. Their chain of custody.
Okay, tough world. Next would be, what is the difference between general liability and product liability?
Yep. So your general liability is going to protect you from what you do or say as a business. Your product liability is going to protect you from what your products do to harm someone else. So think of like your general liability is, you put a listing out there, again, in like my lipstick example, or you have your logo has a swoosh in it and Nike says, hey, that looks like my swoosh, I'm going to sue you now. That's your general liability. When your item hurts someone, that's product liability.
Okay.
And you need both. Make sure your agent gives you both.
Okay, so what is the recommended liability insurance for sellers while labeling their own products?
Yep. So if you're private labeling or white labeling, you still need the general liability and product liability. The big thing that you need is that product liability. If that item gets into someone's hands and it hurts them or hurts their business property, product liability is what's going to kick in. So if you have just a general liability policy, it's not enough. You have to have that product liability included.
Okay. Oh, and I think it's the last. Oh yes, this is the last question. what are the prospects of product liability insurance while being based outside of the United States of America?
Okay, so big thing is, if you're selling in the U.S., the U.S. insurance carriers now are really cracking down. They want you to have a U.S. entity. So if you have to get a hold of someone to start a U.S. entity. We've got referrals if you need questions or help with that, but you've got to have a U.S. entity or a tax ID number to be able to get U.S. insurance now. So once you have that, then we can get you set up with a bunch of different carriers, but you've got to have that information now.
Okay. Well, with that, we have that was the last of the questions that we have. Okay. I think, yeah, we've come to the end of the session, but I won't let you go right now. Please wait, because I hope all of us will protect our businesses and get insurance, the correct kind of insurance, and multiple insurances if necessary, because prevention is always better than cure. And thank you, Ashlin, for being with us here today, taking us through the topic. And is there any last moment advice that you would want to give to sellers out there?
Yeah, I'm not going to give another thing of advice except to just get your policy. But I did want to say that if you guys mention this in your application, we'll give you 50% off your agency fee. So make sure to mention this amazing conference and your coupon code Elite Conference, and then we'll give you 50% off your agency fee for the 1 year. So thank you so much for having me. If you guys ever have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you have a policy now and you're like, hey, Ashlin, I don't know if this is the right one, send it to that email address that I showed you, service@Ashlin Hadden Insurance. We'll be glad to look at it and tell you, yeah, this is great, keep it up, or no, you need to add these other coverages. So don't ever hesitate to ask questions. We want to make sure that your assets are protected. So thank you.
Okay, with that, we wish all of you the best of growth and the best of sales and the highest of profits. And we hope that we can connect again. And for our viewers, we still have sessions left from our other amazing speakers. So you can follow us on all our social handles, all of which you can see all over the screen. And we will have regular updates over there about these sessions. You can send us our questions and we will be very, very interested to answer them with our speakers as well. For more details about the Elite Conference, please look it up and you can find all our handles around here. So thank you so much. Thank you, Ashlin. Thank you.